that Aline already gave me.
Oh, the 8 questions we came up with?
Yeah. But
we
got 6.
Oh, well, you didn't get the rest of them. We were trying to get them all set up so that we can talk to you intermittently in the conversation. We didn't necessarily want you to, but if you feel like doing it that way, that's okay with me.
I'm going to send him number 7 and number 8. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah, those are easy questions to answer. Really easy.
Well, you want to read the question?
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and talk. You guys wanted to know about the Social Security number, opening a bank account?
Yep.
That's one of them, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the Social Security number is assigned to the legal name. They tie the certificate of live birth, that document is tied to that Social Security number. When some of the numbers on the certificate of live birth are in their Social Security system. So they connect the two together. So that means that Social Security is now retirement for your business. It's not retirement for you. So the Social Security number is assigned, but it's not yours. It's not yours. They're letting you use it. Just like the certificate of live birth. That's not yours. Registering does not make that certificate of live birth yours. All it does is it allows you to use the name that's on that certificate of live birth. It also makes you the creditor because that's a bond. Okay, so that bond, though, is on them. They're the debtor. They're at the top of that bond. State of California is at the top of mine. So as a name holder, so that name that's on the ANC comes from that bond. So they're all connected. They're all connected. That's their commercial world. Everything that involves that Social Security number is commerce only. A Social Security number cannot be attached to a living man, in other words. It can only be attached to an entity, a thing. And they talk about that in the Bible, that you can't, the mark of the beast, well, you can't identify a man. You can't. You can find out what he's known as, and you can find out where he's from. That's the family name. But that doesn't identify the man. That just tells you where he came from and what he's known as. So you can identify a thing. So that Social Security number has to be used in conjunction with that name whenever you're in commerce, and it's required. So a bank account is one of those times. So when you set up a bank account, though, it's it's a DBA, but when I set mine up for whatever reason, I told him, I said, I don't really feel comfortable being a sole proprietor because I'm not a sole proprietor. So she was trying to call it a sole proprietor. Is it a sole proprietorship? I said, no, it's a DBA. The business name is different from me. A sole proprietor is when the business name is the same as the proprietor's name. Okay, so that's when you become an entity, though, because remember, a proprietor is an entity. That's one of their labels that they put on things. So it can't be you. So I figured this out, though. What she ended up doing, I think she was just being nice. She left it blank. So and I know she left it blank. So the IRS or the Franchise Tax Board, if they look at the info on mine, it's not going to say anything. So, but I know that's not normal. What normally they say is you're going to have to be either a sole proprietorship or go get a license, a corporation or an LLC or something. And that's when you talk to the people that use the UCC1 and are trying to operate that way in commerce and have that name registered as an LLC, they've got the right idea in that they're putting everything they own in that legal name. The problem with that is, and it's because they're afraid of using that Social Security number, they can go get a new one, an EIN, and they use that for their bank account. But I'll tell you what the problem is. You have to sign that LLC document. That is in commerce. And how are you signing it? See, those people, they don't know that assumed name certificate, if it's done properly, you can't sign the same way as the business entity. It's impossible because only a living man can sign something. So the problem that you'll run into is that the bank is like they're unable to see that they can input it properly where it says first, they've got fields, first, middle, last. And when they ask, who are you? I tell them, I'm Herrick, Douglas Joseph. Oh, so it's Douglas Joseph Herrick. No, it's Herrick, that goes in the first field. And then the second field is Douglas, and then Joseph. She goes, well, Joseph is your middle name, isn't it? I said, no, I don't have a middle name. I don't have a first name either. That's my given name. I have a family name, but that's where I came from. That always comes first. That's why it's got to be in the first field. And her comment to me was, well, we can't do that. And I said, well, if you put Douglas Joseph Herrick, I'm going to sign it, Herrick, Douglas Joseph, DBA Douglas Joseph Herrick. She goes, that's okay. So that's what I did. Because Douglas Joseph Herrick, if it's above, if I sign it below Herrick, Douglas Joseph, DBA Douglas Joseph Herrick, I'm signing it on behalf of my business entity, which makes that totally correct and legal. So that's how you get around that. Now, as far as sole proprietor, go ahead and let them call it a sole proprietorship. And if they try to call you a sole proprietor, you've already got proof right there, your signature. How can a DBA be a sole proprietor? See, it can't. So what happens is if they go to the business name itself, so the tax definition, IRS definition of sole proprietorship is when the name of the business is the same as the name of the sole proprietor. Okay? So the legal name is the sole proprietor. The legal business entity that was created when you filed that legal name and registered it, got a business, a certificate of assumed name, so now it's a business entity, that's the sole proprietorship. So it's not you. You're not the sole proprietor. A sole proprietorship also, and you can look this up in the tax laws, is tax exempt. No taxes for a sole proprietorship. However, if you were labeled as the sole proprietor, you might have a personal income tax liability. See, there's no business income tax, but think about that. All your income is coming in under that legal name. So it's not your income. That's business income. You don't have any personal income. And because that business is tax exempt, they can't touch that money. And you never file a tax return. I haven't filed a tax return in 20 years. I was making a lot of money and not paying anything. They were paying me right out of escrow. I was getting lump sum checks from escrow when I'd fund a loan. They would actually deliver it to me. They had a courier that would come, the title company escrow that I used, they would bring it to me. So And then I had a deal where I was using Everbank, which is a brick and mortar bank back in that day, but I was using my dad's name. I wasn't using, I hadn't figured this out. We're talking back prior to 2005. So in any event, that Social Security number is not to be feared. You shouldn't be afraid of it at all. And you don't want to go get another tax ID number, because that tax ID number is attached to that LLC, not to the certificate of live birth legal name. So that's why you don't want to get a new number. You want the number that they assign to that. When you're born, nowadays, when you're born, they ask the parents. If you're a parent, they'll say, would you like a Social Security number assigned to your child, your newborn? And, most people say, yeah. So right there, it's attached. They put it in right there in the birth record. They're doing that nowadays. So, but you don't have to. See, none of this is mandatory. This is an important part of this whole thing. Nothing is mandatory. Everything is voluntary. Everything. In commerce. So where we get ourselves into trouble is not necessarily using that name, it's misusing that name. When we don't register it, then the presupposition, and that's the legal word that they use, they presuppose that because that certificate of live birth legal name is attached to that Social Security number, and that is you in the system, you're a U.S. citizen. So, in other words, you could say, I'm a U.S. citizen. Oh, yeah, we get that all the time. Because that's what they used to tell me. Yeah. You can't. How do you prove you're not a U.S. citizen when they're connecting the two of those and saying you're Douglas Joseph Herrick? See? It didn't matter. I could tell them till I'm blue in the face. But then, so they're presupposing, but that's when you're like under arrest. Because you have to be a U.S. citizen or a citizen of. They'll say, oh, you're not. What are you a citizen of? Nothing. I'm a living man. A citizen is an entity. It can't be a living man. All of their labels that they give persons can only be applied to entities, not to living men and women. This is where we're blowing it. This is where they're taking advantage, is what I should say, because once they identify you, that's meaning you've got an identity, you're a thing, you're that thing that's operating in commerce illegally. You haven't registered that name. See, you're operating illegally in their game. You want to play their game. So like I said, it's voluntary. You don't have to play their game. If you never use that certificate of live birth and that Social Security number to go do something, hey, that's fine too. But that's when you call off the grid, that's off the grid. How do you survive? So this is the way you survive and not be off the grid and not be afraid of anything. There's nothing to fear. Because you're actually that was a friend of mine calling me, but you're actually complying with the law. That's why when they figure out what you're really doing, all of a sudden they do an about face. At first they may not know what you're doing, but once they figure it out, it's a little bit of a shocker to them. So it depends on whether they've had somebody. It's not like they teach this in judge school. So the judges don't necessarily know unless they've had somebody else in their court embarrass them. Because that's what it is. It's embarrassment, because I'm a living man standing in his Disneyland, and I'm exposing him it's like the king, the emperor with no clothes. It's like, hey, you're standing up there with no clothes. I see you. And so the judge also is at risk, because if he's not registered, or she, then right then and there, hey, if you're not registered, I'm going to need to see some ID. You want to do business with me? We have no contract. I need to see some ID. Who are you? Are you? Is that your name on there, Jane Godfrey? See, they don't like you when you call them by their name. They want you to call them Judge or Your Honor. And when you call, I called the last time I was in court, I said, hey, Jane, did you bring your checkbook? So the whole thing here is, and I wasn't being disrespectful. The attorney yelled at me. He goes, that's being disrespectful. I said, no, it's not. That's her name right there. She's calling me Douglas. Why can't I call her Jane? Is she different than me? What makes her different? Oh, that's right. She's not a living woman. I'm a living man. I guess we are different. So they're not going to expose themselves to something like that if they know. If they know. If they don't know, they step right into it. So once you understand this concept, this is where it's important, by the way. I saw one of the questions was, what are other uses for the DBA other than opening a bank account? Well, everything that I'm talking about being voluntary, like not having a driver's license, not having registration on your vehicle, that's private. So so when you're operating lawfully and legally in commerce, they can't touch you, and they cannot make you have a driver's license. Because why? Does anyone know why? Are you guys out there? Did you mute yourselves? Because I want to make this a little bit interactive. So does anyone know?
Well, I have a supposition, but you might not like the way I put it. This is Daniel.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I believe that the reason why that I don't need to have a driver's license is because I'm not using the registered name of their registered organization in commerce.
Okay, so you're relating it to the not for hire thing, which is fine, but remember, the legal statutes don't apply to you. They apply to your business entity, because that's what's operating in commerce. So is your business entity driving a car? I don't think so. Your business entity ownership is probably not the proper word to use, because I don't believe we own anything. I think that's a trick. And any wealthy person will tell you the key to maintaining wealth and paying zero taxes or very little tax is to own nothing but control it all. So that's where the corporations come in and what have you. So we're doing the same thing as these wealthy people, as the Rockefellers. We're on the same level as them now. Before, they were above us because they had privilege of money. So within the system, they're at the top of the caste system, so to speak, but their privilege is money. So if you're a part of the government, that's the other kind of privilege. You know, if you're president of the United States, you get all kinds of privilege. So it depends on the situation, you know, as far as they're concerned. The corporation, that has only specific things that it applies to. Because why? Because those corporations have persons behind them. Those persons are the ones who are liable. If the corporation doesn't pay tax, then the corporation goes into default. Now you've got the IRS coming after that person, whoever signed for that LLC. That's no bueno. When you have a DBA, even though you're giving the bank that Social Security number, the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board, any tax authority, Any government authority cannot touch it. Period. They can't touch it. So, and the reason being is because a DBA is not a license. There's no license attached to this. So the assumed name certificate is just like a corporation with no strings attached. That's the best analogy I can give you. It's not a corporation, though, because the distinct difference between a corporate entity and a DBA entity is the license. It's a license. And guess what? If you don't pay your taxes, you're not in good standing anymore if you're a corporation. And guess what? Then if you're sued, you can't defend yourself and you can't sue anyone. So your DBA, you have to keep it active. But you don't have to pay taxes to keep it in good standing. You just have to be active. So that's why they require in Minnesota, when you register in Minnesota, you pay $50. That's good for 10 years. But every year, not the year you register, the year you file it, that year you're good. And then the next year, you have to go to the website, you log in, and they have you register, but it's just like, yeah, I'm still alive. Like you click a button. You're just renewing. But it doesn't cost anything. So why do they do that? Because they've got to know that you're still active. So that's how you prove you're active. And then the bank account is another way of showing, yeah, look, the bank account is really good because not only does it have benefits, you can cash checks, you can have automatic deposits, you can pay for things, with your debit card you can use online. So there's all kinds of conveniences without any drawbacks. But I think the more important thing is you're evidencing that Social Security number is tied to that business account, not to you, the man. Does that make sense?
Yes,
it does.
Okay. So that is a huge, huge thing there. If they try to say, well, that Social Security number is yours, and that's you. Oh, really? Well, look at my bank account. How did I open a bank account using the Social Security number that's supposedly attached to me? Explain that. The IRS and the Franchise Tax Board they'll run away with their tail between their legs.
You want to explain that? I don't understand that, Doug.
Okay. If they try to say, when you file that legal name and say, that's not me anymore, the government's going to try to say, well, yeah, it is. They'll say you've got a record under that name. They can check your fingerprints. Well, that's you. No, actually, those fingerprints are mine, but that name is not mine. That's my business entity. Here, let me show you. And by the way, the fact that you got those fingerprints in your system there, you owe me some money because I never gave you permission. See, do they ask permission? When you're being arrested, do they ask you, do you want your fingerprints taken? No. It's like, it's time for fingerprints. And if you say no, they beat the crap out of you. I know because that happened to me. The first time I got arrested, I said, no, these fingerprints are mine. And of course, it's like, well, I'd already, I'm already Douglas Joseph Herrick in their minds. This is the first time I got arrested in 2005. So they threatened to beat me up and throw me on the ground and take blood from me if I didn't submit to a blood test. So I submitted to the blood test, and I said, okay, I'm not doing the fingerprints, though. Well, that was the wrong mistake. That was a big mistake. It should have been the other way around. I should have said no to the blood test and go ahead with the fingerprints. But since I had already consented to the blood test, okay, well, if you don't want to do the fingerprints, fine. So they threw me on the ground and ripped my clothes off and put me in a straitjacket and then threw me in one of those padded cells. And about 5 hours later, they came and said, "You ready for fingerprints yet?" It was a doctor. "Hey, are you ready for fingerprints yet? Because, I'm sure it's not very comfortable in there." All there was like a drain in the bottom of the thing. And this is my first time in jail. How traumatic is that? I'm in a straitjacket in a padded room, and I'm not even drunk. And I wasn't doing anything wrong. I didn't do anything illegal. I pulled a U-turn, and he didn't like it. It was a totally legal U-turn. But that's beside the point. That was back when I had a driver's license and I had registered my car. So this was my first taste of, and so that's when I lost my license. They suspended it, but then they said you can get it back on a temporary basis if you jump through all these hoops. And I said, you know what? I don't want it back. You can keep it. And of course they're like, huh? You don't want it back? Well, how are you going to drive? I'm going to drive without it. I'm going to figure this out because something tells me, God's telling me I don't need that thing. Something's telling me I don't need it. So you did me a favor. Thanks. So anyway, okay, so that's the Social Security number. There's no reason to be afraid of opening a bank account using that because it proves you opened a business bank account, not a personal bank account. Now, if you opened a personal bank account, or let's say that you have a personal bank account right now, big problem. You want to get rid of that as soon as possible. If it's using that Social Security number attached to that personal account, close it. And then open the business account. You don't want to mix the two of those together. Once you register that name, nothing is personal anymore, unless it's outside of the commercial world. See, where you get into trouble is mixing the personal world in their public world. See, personal is private. Public is open to everybody. That's why, like, the courts are public, right? Everyone's got access to those records. Some of them they seal, but that's operating in the public. That's why there's the Freedom of Information Act, because that's public. They're telling us, hey, anything you do in public, that's our game of commerce. So when they say public property, like this is public property. Most of the time it's not. It's private, but they think it's public. True public property would be Washington, D.C. That's public. Okay? So anything in there is commerce. Those roads are all that land is owned by the USA. It's owned by and ceded to the United States of America. But the street in front of your house, no, that's private. Why? Because if you look at I was in real estate, so I looked at plat maps all the time. Every appraisal had one. You would always see the property line goes to the middle of the street. And I did a lot of new subdivision projects, so I would see the blueprints. They show the lot going right exactly to the middle of the street. Now, why, if you didn't own that, when you bought that land, why wouldn't it be on the other side of the sidewalk? Because that's what everyone thinks, that's the property line. But it's not. The plat map tells the truth. It goes to the middle of the street. Okay? And then there's an easement for the sidewalk, if there is one, and the road, that half of the road. There has to be a cooperative easement, otherwise nobody would be able to have egress and ingress to their property. So, but speaking of real estate, here's another place where the DBA helps, and it's not just real estate. Anything that's in that name, any property, any private property. Okay, so land, car, motorcycle, it doesn't matter what it is. If you want that to be labeled as property of Douglas Joseph Herrick, and they're going to say, oh, that's your property. No, Douglas Joseph Herrick is my business entity. it holds that property. And that's what corporations do. They have holding companies. And that holding company, banks all have holding companies. All of them. That's where they put their assets. So your bank account is like a holding company. It's holding all the assets for Douglas Joseph Herrick. And since I'm the CEO, I control all those assets. And I have no personal income liability. So, and remember, that's a business account that's attached to the Social Security number. So if they contact me, I'm going to say, hey, that's my business entity. The Social Security number is attached to the business. And it's tax exempt. My business doesn't have to pay anything. So I have no personal income, period. Plus, I'm a living man. So, you know, anything that's personal in their commercial world is eliminated. You don't want to even use that word personal. You don't want to say personal property. That's attached to a person. And they make that connection. So private, that's the word you want to use. It's private versus public. Light and dark. That's the line. You're delineating that line with that assumed name certificate. You're drawing that line, a dark, line that is easy to prove. You just have a piece of paper that says it right here. So there's the certificate of assumed name. Then there's a certificate of existence and registration. So the difference between the two, the first one, the certificate, the actual assumed name certificate, is going to have all the information. Everything is listed there, except for CEO. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's going to have the name holder, the addresses for both the business and the name holder, the date it was filed, the date or the entity ID number. It's 2 pages. So then there's the certificate of existence and registration, which is what you use if someone says, "What proof do you have that business actually exists?" Right here, Douglas Joseph Herrick. It's a certificate of existence and registration. So it proves that not only does that business exist, it's registered. That's your proof. You're registered. See? So that's what you say. You say, "Are you registered? Do you have one of these?" Because if you don't have one like this with your legal name on it, you're operating illegally in commerce. That's everybody out there, cops included. They're all doing it. So, but they just don't know. The only one who knows, and the only place where it really matters when it's government law enforcement, is in court. So, if they drag you into a courtroom and they say, "Okay, Douglas Joseph Herrick, no, that's my business entity. You dragged me in here, but you're charging my business entity with a crime. Not me. I'm a living man in your courtroom, in your Disney World. Do you want me in here because I'm registered? Are you registered?" See, this is where you can go right at the judge. Are you registered? Do you have one of these? Do you have an assumed name certificate? Is your legal name registered? I see it on the name thing there. Is that name registered? Because if you're not registered, I'm going to need to see some ID, and I hope you brought your checkbook. You're going to write me a check you can say $10,000. You're not registered. You dragged me in here, and you're not registered? See? And so it's all about contract at that point. They cannot presuppose that you are that person anymore, because you're able to prove you're a legalized business entity, or not you, but you have. That name is a legal business entity. You're registered. So You know, that's where it really matters. The rest of this is more. It's in your mind. It's in your mind more than anything else. You just realize. Let's say that you have a driver's license and you're a postal carrier, and you want to register that name. But if you want to be a postal carrier, you got to keep that license. Your boss can come at any time and say, "Show me that license." Okay, so I would never say to someone, "Get rid of that driver's license." That, you know, no, that's fine. You can keep it. You just don't need it unless the job that you work at requires it. And here's why: because when you register that name, that ceases to be a driver's license. It ceases to be a driver's license. When you applied for that driver's license, they attached the Social Security number to it. And what name is on there? That's your business entity name. And yeah, your picture's on there, but that's what real estate agents do. They put their picture on their business card. That's my business. Oh, you don't want my driver's license. You want my business card. Here it is. And by the way, here's my assumed name certificate. I'm registered. So that's if there's a cop. But see, you don't need to carry that driver's license with you if you're registered. So, but if your job requires it, yeah, on the spot, you got to be able to pull it out. So I have a friend up in Sacramento that registered, and she's been a postal carrier for, I think, 15 years. And so when one of her supervisors came to her and says, "Hey, I need to see your driver's license," she goes, "Oh, you mean you want to see my business card?" And she pulled it out, and the supervisor was like, kind of a half of a laugh, and she looks at it and she hands it back to her. So that's what it is. It's a business card. It just happens to have your statistics on there, your weight and your height, which is kind of unusual for a business card. But the thing is that you want that address that's on that card to match the address that's on the assumed name certificate. And people ask me too about the address, if they should be concerned about, having the business address the same as the address for the name holder. If you actually have another address for a business, then use it. It doesn't matter. All this postal service stuff, the only time, my friend Chad down in Southern California, he got rid of CPS. He's in the midst of a divorce. He stopped his case. His wife filed for the divorce. He filed the assumed name certificate into the court, sent copies of it with cover notices. I don't call them letters. It was a cover notice to the CPS agency and to both attorneys. CPS closed the case, like within 2 days of getting that letter. He sent it certified. So then after that, when this all involves his 6-year-old son who has leukemia, and he was getting him better he was feeding him fruits, berries, and melons strictly over like a 4-month period, and his leukemia was almost gone. His white blood cell count was up around like 10,000 or something, outrageous. And he had it down to like 20.
Raw food diet.
Yeah, just all raw fruits, vegetable, or very little vegetables. It was almost a lot of grapes, tropical fruits, pineapple, mango, papaya, any fruit it works. And what it does is it helps the body eliminate the toxins, including the chemo. And it brought his body back. It's like he gained like 15 pounds. That's a lot of weight for a 6-year-old. And he gained 15 pounds and strength. He was getting stronger. He was almost cured. That's when CPS stepped in. because he was having blood tests done. He took his son and went to Las Vegas. He was hiding. That's how he was able to do it, because they were giving him chemo, and he says, "You're not going to do that to my son anymore." So this started 2 years ago, and so they found him, and they brought him back. They dragged him back, and he's been like pleading for the last year for them to stop doing chemo, and showing him all the records showing that the doctors at Kaiser were saying that's impossible. You cannot cure leukemia. That you can't drop the white blood cell count with anything other than chemo. That's in their mind. They don't know that fruits, berries, and melons do a better job. They drop it and they don't kill anything. So it's contrary to the whole system of commerce, though. See, they're making billions, if not trillions of dollars by the court system now forcing it. If one of the spouses, the husband or the wife, says they want chemo and the other one doesn't, they're gonna side with the one that does. And CPS, if they go to CPS and say, see, we're doing this to ourselves, because CPS wouldn't have got involved unless his wife went and said, hey, my husband took my son and is endangering him, when in fact it was the exact opposite. She's just not altogether there. His wife, unfortunately, and they're in the midst of a divorce, and he stopped that case
with a
it's dead in
certificate.
Yeah.
How did he do that, Doug?
He just filed it into the court. They can't do anything.
Was
Here's
there
what happens.
A motion attached, a notice attached, a motion attached? Just filed a certificate in there.
No motion. No motion. The only time you ever use motions is when your business entity is the plaintiff. If you're suing someone, if someone is suing you, or you're the defendant in a criminal type case, yeah, there's no motion. You just tell them, here, I'm registered. You don't need to motion for anything. You just expose them. But if you're going to sue somebody, you're suing them. Remember, you're suing them using your business entity. So Herrick, Douglas Joseph, DBA Douglas Joseph Herrick. That's who's suing the tow company operator. And I'm suing the tow operator personally. I'm holding him personally liable. He's going to try and hide behind his corporation, and I'm going to expose him. I'm going to say I'm not suing his corporation. That's what the demur is all about. He's saying, look, he's got a registered corporation, blah, 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 blah. It's in good standing. I'm not suing his registered corporation. I'm suing the man, the person, not the man, the person. He's not registered. So in my response to my opposition to his demur, I'm going to explain, hey, he's not registered, Your Honor. I'll call him Your Honor when I'm the plaintiff. So, because see, here's where you can turn everything around. When someone tries to say, oh, you're anti-government, you don't pay taxes. Oh, no. Absolutely not. It's the exact opposite. I want the government to stay in place, because now I figured out what I was doing wrong. And all along, all those taxes I was paying were voluntary. So now I'm going to get it back. So, no, I want the government to stay intact, because I figured it out. I'm not operating in commerce illegally anymore. I'm legal. So now I'm pro-government. I turned it completely around. Now, I don't want you guys to go away. You just can't do anything to me anymore. Sorry, but I can use your system. And actually, if you do something to me, I can use your system to get money from you. You still want to touch me? That's where they realize, wow, we don't want to mess with people like that, because they are personally liable. They see what we've been doing wrong. If we try to sue that cop and we're not registered, who do you think the court's going to side with? They're going to side with the cop that's unregistered, not you. So you lose. Remember, you can't defend yourself. But when it's a business entity, they will not want to mess with you. And so when you file this into a court action, it immediately turns the defendant or the respondent into it separates the defendant. They don't have a defendant anymore, because how can a defendant be an entity? See? So you've registered, you showed that's not a living man. That's my business entity. You're suing my business entity, and I have standing. You still want to sue me? You can't throw me in jail. Even if you convict, you're convicting my business entity. What do you convict? What did my business entity do to you? And I have standing. So see, in these court cases, you see it all the time when it's a person that's being sued, especially by a corporation or in whatever it is. Pardon? Did someone say something?
No.
Oh, okay. Now I lost my train of thought. There was some noise or something I just heard. But anyway,
when you sue somebody.
When you sue somebody using your business entity, you don't want to sue someone that's got standing. Why would you sue a corporation? Like I had someone ask me, why didn't you sue his corporation? Why didn't you sue his business? That's where all his assets are. And I said, well, that's a good question. The assets, like the tow trucks and what have you, they are owned by the corporation. That's right. But who signed for that corporation? Whoever signed for that is personally liable. That's the guy that's going to say, I'm the owner. I'm the president or principal, whatever. Oh, that's the guy I'm going to sue, not the corporation. Corporation has standing. The person that thinks he's a living man, calling himself Richard Shipp, has no standing. He's a sitting duck. I can pick him off. So that's where the DBA is going to benefit us the most. The people that have been dragged through, and of course I submitted myself to it, because if you don't try something, how do you know it works? So the first 10 years ago, I was using territorial jurisdiction. Well, that didn't work. But I spent 55 days in LA County Jail trying to prove that it was right, and I got my ass handed to me. Okay, that didn't work. But, that's beside the point. Someone has to do something and try something in order to make sure it works. So right now I'm in the midst of a suit. First time I've ever sued anybody, ever. So I think I filed a small claims suit one time, and then the guy came and paid me. So I never had to sue him. So I'd never done that before. So anyway, this is a good learning experience for me, but it's not hard. It really isn't. I've written lots of letters, and with all the research that I've done. But see, the key is not knowing statute law. Like I know about the, not for hire, and I'm not driving, I'm traveling. Yeah, but that don't work. That don't work every time. I know that there's videos out there. I've seen people that, they either catch a cop that is in a good mood, but, there was one video, this guy had a warrant. He had a warrant and no driver's license, and I think the car was registered. I'm pretty sure the car, or maybe it didn't. Maybe the car didn't even have tags. That's right. I think maybe the car didn't have tags either. And he handed him some paperwork. I don't know what it was, common law, something or other. But see, he got pulled over. I don't get pulled over anymore. When you put private property on your plate, I've been trying to get pulled over. Even in this town where I'm in, I was driving by the police station. There was a police car right behind me. Right behind, and you would think, okay, well, you know, it could have been he was getting off his shift and he didn't want to mess with me, but it was right in front of the station, you know. He could have easily written me up and taken me to jail, whatever, and taken the car. And see, they won't do it, though. They will not pull me over, but they'll steal the car off the street when they think I'm not around. See, I caught them. They didn't know I was there in the house. They had no idea. It was just on the street. So they'll steal it when they think no one's looking. And so I walked out and I told them, I said, hey, what's going on, guys? That's my business property you're taking. You know that. Well, who are you? I said, I'm Douglas. Who are you? Do I have a contract with you guys? Because that's my business property. I don't think I've got a contract with. You're with the city of Walnut Creek, aren't you? And they're like, we need to see some ID. I said, I'll be right back. So I went in the house. At first they were going, you can't go in the house. And I said, well, you just said you wanted some paperwork. I got my paperwork in here. You can't go in the house. And I said, hey, I'm going in the house. I'm going in the house. So I come out. They're hiding behind their police cars. They're hiding behind there. They think I'm going to be violent because they're taking my truck, like I'm some like sovereign citizen. And so I come out and I'm holding my hands up with both of the laminated assumed name certificate paperwork, and I go, it's just this, guys. Look, it's paper. Look, and I'm in shorts and no shirt and thongs, so it's obvious I'm not hiding anything. And so they come up and they look at it and they go, what's this? This is from Minnesota. That doesn't work here. That doesn't apply here. I said, oh, really? Okay. Well, I'm just showing you notice. You asked for identification. This identifies my business entity, and that is my business property. And it says Douglas of Avalon on the bumper. That's me. That's my AKA. So as soon as the truck started to pull away, they just turned around and walked away. They did not want to talk to me. And he said, when he left, I said, you guys don't know what I do. And they go, yeah, go ahead and sue us. I go, no, I'm not going to sue you. It's not going to be me suing. It's going to be my business entity, and I'm going to sue his boss, that guy that's driving away. But thank you. You just took the bait. I've been trying to get that car towed for 5 years now, ever since I took the numbered plates off and put that private property plate on there. And they turned and walked away. So, yeah, see, if this obviously this police department has never met anyone like me. So this is all relatively new stuff that I'm talking to you guys about. But see, now I'm not the defendant. I'm the plaintiff. I'm the plaintiff. I have the same standing that a corporation would have in a court. And I'm suing someone that has no standing.
Do they still have your property, Doug?
Pardon?
Do they still have your business property?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And so here's what I did. Okay, you have to give them an offer to just let them know, hey, you made a mistake. You are the owner, aren't you? So you made a mistake. First I tried to call and said, hey, you might want to have that guy call me. You know, I want to inform him there's no information on that truck as to who the owner is. It's my business entity, and I've got that information. And so I left messages. He ignored it. So I sent him a letter, certified. Hey, you know, I know people make mistakes, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm sending you my assumed name certificate so that you understand that property is private. It says it right on the plate, private property, and my business entity holds that property for me. So it's going to be my business entity that's suing you if you keep that truck. And oh, by the way, you know, if I'm giving you a chance though to give it back, and if you give it back, we're good. We're good to go. There's no problem because you made a mistake. No problem. If you don't though, from June 17th forward, it's $1,500 a day. So we're at about, with the value of the truck, about $100,000 right now. Okay, so they're rolling the dice. They think, because if I get a summary judgment, I've already got the U.S. Marshal ready to help me. He said, as soon as you get the judgment, I'm at your service. That's my job. And I said, well, this guy's got a lot of assets. He's got a property management company, and he and his wife have been accumulating property over the years. They've got like a little empire. They got like 20 properties. Some of them they're just partners in, but it doesn't matter. If their name is attached to that, hey, we can lien that sucker. And then when they try to sell it, they got to pay me. They're paying my business entity. So, but if he has any assets, like if there's, they're going to take the liquid assets first, clean out his bank account, just like the IRS does. Sorry, you owe me money. I gave you a chance to give it back. So now it's $1,500 a day. And like people, I guess, don't understand that if you're, because I called up the U.S. Marshal and I said, listen, I have a business and my business property has been taken. And I explained to him the whole thing. It was a tow truck and I had no numbered plates on there. It's not registered. I put private property on there. He goes, okay. And I said, they took it and I sent him a letter offering him to give it back, and it's $1,500 a day. So if I get this judgment, will you help me? He said, yeah, I'm at your service. So there you have it. They're helping me. So, you know, as far as the government goes, that's a different situation. You know, if you're registered and a judge does something to you, that judge is going to be liable. And you can have that judge served in their courtroom. See, I've already envisioned this, you know, because I got a couple of judges that I'm going to have served. And you walk in just when they're like on a break or whatever, you know, and the judge is there, everyone's there, and you walk in and you go up to the bailiff and you just ask, you use the full name though. See, you got to get the legal name. And you ask, is so-and-so here? Oh, yeah, that's the judge right there. Oh, great. So you're so-and-so? Oh, great. Well, you've just been served. Here, bailiff, you can hand it to her. Right in their courtroom. So how can they say, oh, no, how are they going to run away from that? You've just been served. And they're in shock. And, of course, it's not me that's doing it. I think this is where we can help each other. I've got a friend down in Southern California that used to do process serving. And there's a guy up here. So if there's cases going on, we can serve for each other because it's not hard to do. And see, when you have process servers involved, if they know what you're doing and they're registered process servers, they can be paid off by the attorneys. In fact, that happened in my case. The process server was trying to screw up the service process. And she was lying. She told me it was done, and then she sent me something that said that she served only the wife and that she did mail service on the husband. But she told me already that she served them both. It's done. And then she changed her mind, and it took 2 weeks to get the POS, the proof of service. So I knew what she was up to. The attorney got to her. Because as soon as they're served, what is that guy going to do? Pick up the phone. Hey, I just got served with papers. This idiot with this truck is suing me. He doesn't realize it's my business that's suing you, not me. I tried to tell you. So see, the court hasn't seen the letter I wrote either. That's going to be in with my opposition to his motion to demur, and then I'm going to file a motion to move for summary judgment based on the fact that the attorney can't even defend his client. His client has no standing. He's not registered. Richard Shipp is not registered. He's a sitting duck. Pay me. So I've already thought ahead what's going to happen. The judge gets all this in front of him. Because I'm going to do this like in the next few days. I'm going to have it all ready to go. I just picked up the demur. I haven't even read all of it yet. I just looked. I scanned and looked at it. I saw what he's doing. He has all this information in there that, about the corporation and everything. He's trying to hide behind the corporate veil. See? It's funny. I laugh because this attorney, what else can he do? So here's what I told the attorney. I said, this is how it's going to play out, Bill. Because we've talked a couple of times. I sent him the paper I wrote. Everything in commerce is fiction. He asked me to educate him. I said, well, okay, I'll do that because I think it may help settle this right away. I'm going to send you a paper that I wrote. So I sent it to him, and I haven't heard back from him since. So, but I was telling him, I said, this is how it's going to play out, Bill, because he was telling me, your lawsuit has no merit. I said, really? What part of it? What part? He goes, well, I'm going to file a motion to demur, and I'll put it in there. You'll find out. I go, okay. I said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to file the motion to demur. I'm going to oppose the motion to demur, and I'm going to file a motion to move for summary judgment. The judge is going to have that in front of him. He's going to pick up the phone, and he's going to call you, Bill, and he's going to say, hey, Bill, got a bit of a problem here. Your client does not have standing. This guy is right, and guess what? You better either get them together and settle with him, pay him, or I'm going to issue the summary judgment. It's up to you. I don't really care, but this guy's not stepping foot in my courtroom. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee you, no judge wants me in that courtroom. I'm going to tell him I'm a living man. You want a living man in your courtroom? I don't think so. I'm a living man, and I'm registered, so I can prove it. See, this is where when other people go into court and say, I'm a living man, and here's my UCC1 or whatever, they can't prove that that doesn't prove that they're not that legal name. It doesn't. And filing a corporation, getting a corporation, if you're using that legal name, you're screwing yourself. You would never want to do that. That's where a lot of these people are they're getting in trouble. They're getting in trouble. They're falling into a trap. It's kind of like filing the bankruptcy and then finding out, oh, I got to file tax returns. It's like, holy crap. Then they use that as their tool to take you down. They always
Yeah, I can. You're going to want
They always do that. So it's a similar situation. It's a way of luring people into a trap. Here, are you an LLC? An LLC, that's what you ought to be. They leave me alone. Oh, really? Well, guess what? You got to pay a fee every year. I don't have to do that. And that's for a license, which has all these strings attached to it. And if you don't follow those rules, see, you're operating in commerce illegally. Of course they're going to come and take whatever you own or think you own. See, that's where I say we don't own anything. If we owned it, they wouldn't be able to take it. So we put it in the name of our business entity, and we possess it, and we use it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. What's the other 10th? Control. You got to control it. It's the same thing as Rockefeller said. You don't want to own anything. You want to control it. So that's what it is. You possess it. You don't own it. You possess it. I'm in the truck. I'm driving it. They don't pull me over. But as soon as I leave that thing there, they want to steal it. So go ahead. They think they can get away with it. See, without any, they're not going to put themselves at risk. And of course, the cops are like, go ahead, sue us. No, I'm not going to sue you. No. I didn't explain to them, but they're just not, they're ignorant. They're telling the tow truck driver to tow a vehicle that's private property on private property. They know they can't do that, but they're going to do it anyway because they just don't know what they're doing. They think it's public. But a judge knows it's private. A judge would get pissed off if this was brought into their courtroom. I guarantee you. He would be pissed. He wouldn't allow it. There's no way. So that's why I'm telling you guys, you will never step foot in a courtroom suing someone this way. It's all done by mail correspondence. You may have to go down to the courthouse to make sure it gets filed properly. I did that in person. But look at how much I'm going to get compensated. $1,500 a day. Yeah, you can keep my truck for a couple years if you want to. Go ahead. It'll just keep accruing. So anyway, that's what's kind of exciting about this. People are like, well, you lost all these vehicles. Well, now if I figure out how to do this, guess what? I'm going to go back and sue each tow truck company. I've had 3. This is the 3rd vehicle and a motorcycle. And Rich, you were asking about my motorcycle.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what happened to it, but I know who the owner is. The tow company's in Santa Monica, and I can't remember what it was kind of funny what happened when I won on the 19th, when I was told I was free to go, and they said, yeah, you're free to go, and they tried to hand me a slip of paper that said Douglas Herrick Joseph. Well, I'm looking at that. Who is that? That's not me. And I pushed his hand away, and then he said, you're free to go. See, they're trying to make an offer. Here's an offer. He just handed it to me. He goes, here. And I looked at it. I didn't grab it. And then I pushed his hand away. I go, no, that's not me. I don't know who that is. And I started laughing. And then he looks me in the eyes and he goes, you're free to go. So that day I went down to the tow company in Santa Monica, because that was LAX courthouse. So I went down there and I said, hey, you need to give me my motorcycle. I just won in court. But I didn't have any paperwork because they didn't give me anything. So anyway, they ended up calling the police because they gave me a bill for like $800 and some odd. They said, you got to pay this. I go, dude, the bike is probably only worth $1,000. You got to be kidding me. I'm not paying anything. But if you keep it, you're going to definitely pay me, and I'll probably end up taking your yard here. So you might be looking for a job or working for me. And he laughed, and he disappeared, and he comes back like 5 minutes later. He goes, the cops are on their way. I go, cool. Okay, right on. I get to tell them, you guys just lost in court. So there were like 9 cops, and I was backed up against the wall, so they couldn't circle me. There's like a half circle. So I was telling them the story of what happened in court. And they, I told them, I said, listen, my motorcycle's in there. He's not giving it to me. And I know you're not going to help me get it, but I'll get it. One of these days I'll either get the motorcycle or he's going to pay for it one way or another. And I said, hey, by the way, that's my truck across the street. It's parked right across the street. I didn't feed the meter. So you can give it a ticket. But the only problem is there's no numbered plate on the back. It says private property, just like my motorcycle. But here's the keys. Go ahead. You want to tow it? That's an easy buck. It's right here. The tow truck company's right here. Here's my keys. Any takers? None of those cops took the keys. And they turned and walked away. So who does that kind of stuff, though? Do you know anyone that would do that? Nobody would do that. Nobody I know. But see, I was trying. The whole thing here is when you assert yourself and you know, I had just won. I just won in court. I knew I won. That's when I knew that assumed name certificate was it. And so I'm thinking, okay, now I want him to take it. Here, take my truck. It's got the same plate that was on my motorcycle, same exact one as your officer back on August 3rd arrested me for and took my bike. Okay, so there's my truck right there. Here's the keys. I swear that's my truck. It's owned by my business. Here, take it. Take it. And they wouldn't take it. So, see, they know that there's some hocus pocus to their whole system. They may not fully understand what I was talking about or why, I had won. But I had no proof anyway. They were asking me for paperwork, and I said they didn't give me any paperwork. And they're like, yeah, right, like they don't give paperwork. I said they don't give paperwork when someone like me wins. They only give paperwork when people like me lose. So anyway, all right, okay, I'm done there. What else? What other questions do you guys have? Hello? Anyone there?
Yes. Yeah, we're all here, Doug.
Okay.
Doug,
Well,
I have a question.
I asked, what other questions do you have? Because the screen doesn't show the questions on there anymore because we hung up. That message thread was gone. So what other questions do you have, though?
Hey, Doug. You got your friend Lance working on the fact of using the ANC for a passport. How's that going? Any news on that?
No, he told me, what I asked him. I said, have you tried to use that as a passport yet? I think you can. You just got it authenticated. It should be good anywhere, any country.
So have the SOS in Minnesota authenticated?
Yeah, what he did is he registered the name, and then he got, I don't know how much you have to pay. I think it's $10 or $15 to get this other certificate, which certifies that Steve Simon, the Secretary of State, took his oath and is seated properly, right?
Yes.
He sent that along with the assumed name certificate to John Kerry, to the State Department, and had it authenticated. And it almost looks like it's there's a binder or something. It's real fancy. I sent it to you, right? You saw it.
No, I didn't see that.
Is it like an apostille?
No.
It's not like an apostille.
An apostille is totally different. The authentication, the verbiage on the authentication. Hang on, let me. I got to get my glasses here. Let's see. Okay, I'll read it verbatim. It says at the top, United States of America, Department of State, to all to whom these presents shall come greetings, and then there's a colon. Then it says, I certify that the document hereunto annexed is under the seal of the state, and then in parentheses there's an S, so states of Minnesota, and that such seal is or are entitled to full faith and credit. And then there's a little asterisk, and underneath that it's for the contents of the annexed document, the department assumes no responsibility. This certificate is not valid if it is removed or altered in any way whatsoever. So they've got them kind of in a binder. They're together.
Sure.
And then at the bottom it says, there's a seal, like an embossed thing, and at the bottom it says, in testimony whereof I, John F. Kerry, Secretary of State, have hereunto caused the seal of the Department of State to be affixed, and my name subscribed by the Assistant Authentication Officer of the said department at the City of Washington in the District of Columbia, this 4th day of August, 2015. And then his signature is below, and then the assistant authentication officer's signature is below that. And I'm sure that they look like real signatures, but I have a feeling it's probably, somehow it doesn't look like a stamp, though.
Right.
Maybe he signs them. I don't know. and then it has the State of Minnesota Secretary of State, the Certificate of Office. That's what it's called.
Sure.
Certificate of Office. I, Ann Kaner Roth, Deputy Secretary of the State of Minnesota, do certify that the person listed below, whose signature appears on the attached document, held the office set forth below, and that the person was duly qualified and empowered to hold that office and to perform all the functions of that office on the date the attached document was signed. Name of signing person, Steve Simon, that's the Secretary of State, office held, Secretary of State, State of Minnesota.
Okay.
And then date, document signed, and it says this certificate has been issued on July 6, 2015. So that's the thing that I think he probably had to pay 10 or 15 bucks for. But it has the official gold seal down at the bottom left corner, and it's signed by this Ann Kaner Roth, the Deputy Secretary of State. So, and then the third thing, of course, the third page is the actual assumed name certificate, which is 2 pages.
Right.
So what I think is that you can take that and like that last page, see there's 2 pages to the assumed name certificate, right?
Yes.
So the assumed name certificate on the back side has all this space underneath it. It's just this stamp, and then it has the entity ID number stuff. That's where the Visa stamps go, or if it's required as a Visa, that's where the Visa stamp would go. Or when you arrive and they stamp it, that's where they would stamp it. That's just my opinion, but that's it's authenticated. It's
so
saying
somebody needs to try it.
Yes. So anyway, this is something that, see, I didn't know about the authentication process. What an apostille is if you have a document that is going to be used in a foreign country. It's a U.S. document that's going to be used in a foreign country in commerce. That assumed name certificate is foreign already. It's already foreign. So he's authenticating it so that we can use it in a foreign country, but it's already foreign. So it doesn't need an apostille. See, because it's an apostille. Actually, an apostille is when you have a document that's foreign that you want to use here. It's the opposite. Right? Am I right about that?
I don't know if you are or not.
Yeah, I do believe if you read what an apostille does, it takes a document that is foreign and allows you to use it here. So these people that are saying, "Hey, I'm foreign to the United States," and they make up this thing, they have an apostille put on there. Okay, but why doesn't that work? See, the reason it doesn't work is they're still going to try and say you're that first, middle, last name. Unless you've got it registered. It's got to be registered.
Okay. So Doug, if I already have an apostille done, and now that I got it registered, would that work as a passport?
Well, see, an apostille, like I said, an apostille is to use a document that's a foreign document that you're going to use here.
Right.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that document, the assumed name certificate, is not foreign to the United States, but it would be foreign in another country. That's why you get it authenticated, because you're using that in another country, in another nation.
Got it.
So they're like opposing. They're opposing things. If you want to see, it's like this whole different group of people that are trying to place themselves outside of their world of commerce, because that's all we're doing. We're able to prove that we're not the ones operating in commerce. But like I said, the truth of the matter is, unless you register that name, you're operating illegally. You can have all this other paperwork and apostilles and everything, but ultimately, no, you can't prove that you're operating legally. You're not registered.
That's right.
So, but it like I say, it only really matters when you're in court or when you're trying to operate in commerce in the banking system somehow. The other thing that people do is talk about doing is other than corporations like LLCs, people say, oh, I don't have an LLC, I have a trust. I opened a bank account using a trust. Like, look how smart I am. But I know all about trusts. And I said, you know what? I know lots of people that went to jail that were using a trust illegally. They all got hauled away. And I knew who they were. They were laundering money. They were wealthy clients of the bank. And so I was doing all kinds of loans for them. So I knew exactly who they were. Little did I know that they were laundering money through a trust. And so they all got convicted. So now if you want to launder money, you're not laundering it. But if you want to bring money into that business account that you open with your assumed name certificate, that $10,000 limit thing that they have?
CTR?
Yeah. Go ahead. You want to report my business? Go right ahead. Because none of that crap matters. Why? There's no tax liability. That business entity has no tax liability. So you can drop $1 million in there. And they'll report it to that Social Security number. They'll come back and they'll say, oh, we can't touch it. We can't touch it. It's a business account. So the way you use this DBA to clean up credit, here's another one. Okay, credit or public records, which is always picked up on credit reports. So you just have to notify in the public record. That's where filing the assumed name with the county might help. But I think all you have to do is notice the clerk recorder. You send a notice to them. Hey, if you got anything in the system that's using my business name, my registered business name, my legal entity, and it's attached to this Social Security number, which is the identity, the tax identifier for my business entity, you need my permission. And if there is anything in there, you need to remove it right now. If I check in a month and it's still there, my business entity is going to file a complaint against you personally, Mr. Clerk Recorder. So they're going to do a sweep and take all that information out of there. Any liens, any public record, it's gone. As far as the credit card debt, if it's gone to collection or whatever, you just do the same thing with the collection bureau. You send them a copy of the assumed name certificate. You say, listen, this account, if it's listed as a business account, or I'm sorry, an individual account connected with this Social Security number, you got to remove it. It's got to be completely removed because that Social Security number is attached to my legal name. Another reason why you want to have that bank account, so you can prove, hey, this is my business entity. Look, I opened a bank account, a business bank account using this Social Security number. Now you're going to still say it's an individual? Nuh-uh. They can't. So they got to remove it. This I know just from past experience in the loan business. I've had situations where I had one situation where the business went belly up and they had some business credit on the credit report. These people were trying to buy a home, and I was able to get that business credit taken off their thing because whoever attached that to his Social Security number, that Social Security number only was for individual. See, when you're not registered, it can't be attached to a business. So I said, you can't have that on this credit report. And they go, yeah, you're right. Boom, it's gone. His credit score went up like 40 points. So that Social Security number can only be attached to a business, not an individual account. So in the world of commerce, there's a definitive line, stuff that's personal, or they call it individual in the credit business, or it's business. There's no in between. It's got to be one or the other. Okay, so there. Yeah.
On a UCC 11 form, which is a debtor search in the United States, and all the states have adopted it, there is two types of debtors in the United States. One's called an individual, and the other's called an organization. Can you address that thought you had in light of that information I just gave you? That is a fact. That is the UCC 11 form. That's fact. Only two types of debtors.
It doesn't apply to you if you're registered. It doesn't matter.
Well, in that realm of debtor, is the registered name a organization or individual if it goes in debt?
It can't. Okay, I see what you're saying. Say, for example, you got a business credit card. Is that what you're saying? If you had a business credit card?
That's for instance, a business credit card, or you're going to take out a loan, or you're going to make a contract for repayment, or a contract for sale on a house, etc.
Yeah. So your business entity is then in a contract. It's operating under the auspice of that contract. So if it is the one that borrows the money and doesn't repay it, well then they could file a suit against the business entity, but they won't win. And I mean, how do I explain this? Just being registered. Okay, so let's say that you're being sued by a credit card company. Okay, your business is being sued. So who's going to represent your business? You are, as the defendant. Okay, so you're the living man. You're outside of the commercial world, but you're controlling that business entity. So you would the first thing you would do in your answer to the complaint is you would, because it'd be a civil complaint, you would file into the record the assumed name certificate and say, listen, my business entity has no liability for debt because there's no way for it to be able to pay that debt, because the instrument that they're supposedly using to pay that debt is debt. How do you pay debt with debt? You can't. So you're exposing that part of and I'm just saying, I don't know, this would be my answer though. How am I supposed to pay debt with debt? Explain that to me. If you can explain that to me, then I'll pay. My business entity will pay you. No problem. Can you explain that though? How are they going to explain that? They can't. All that money, see, this is play money. You're on the outside. You're exposing their whole world as a fantasy land. It's not real. It's not real. None of it is real. So, okay, what are you going to take my business to debtor's prison? Go ahead. Go right ahead. They can't. And they can't link you to that business because you're separating yourself from that. There's no license. There's no license. So my guess is you would never get sued. All you'd have to do is if you were defaulting on a debt, and they sent you something in the mail to the business entity, you should respond and just say, listen, I'm registered. And I understand your situation. I really can't answer that because you're telling me I owe my business entity has a debt, but the only way that I have to pay for it is with another debt. They cancel each other out. So the debt isn't real to begin with, is what I'm saying. It's all fake. There is no debt. That's in their fake world. Just look at it as monopoly, okay? The Federal Reserve note is just like monopoly money. And that title that you've got to that property that you own, free and clear, that's just like holding up one of those Park Place documents, that those little cards. No different. Same thing. So, see, nobody is thinking of it that way. They go down there and it looks so official. When I was down at the courthouse today, I look around. I went into some of the courtrooms. I just sat in there, and I looked around, and I'm like thinking to myself, all the bailiff, the prosecutor, the judge, the court reporter, they're all actors. Every single one of them. They'll call them employees, but they're actors. They're putting on an act because it's all fake. All of it. But they're going to say it's real, and they're going to try and drag you into their fictional realm. They're going to try and get you to contract. It's all about contract. So that's why I said, if you're not the one contracting, though, it's your business entity that's, if you contract at all, it's your business entity. So if you default on a loan, you know, it would end up in court, right? And why I think this would never even be an issue is because as soon as you start filing stuff into the court and the judge sees it, he's going to say, because what are you going to do? You're going to move to dismiss the case. And he's going to agree, yeah, I don't want that guy in my courtroom. You kidding me? Same thing is true with mortgages and everything else.
My guess is that the registered name is not a bankrupt entity, but the registered organization is. And you don't have they have no standing, and you do.
But see, a DBA is not an organization.
Right, but I'm not talking about the DBA. I'm talking about any of the other, say some other organization, whether it be the state of or one of the agencies thereof. They're all bankrupt.
Or a collection, a collection agency.
They're all bankrupt, and the registered name that you register is not bankrupt. It's got it's not attached to the bankruptcy of the United States, the way I understand it. Is that incorrect, or do you understand it that way?
Wait, say that again.
When you register the name, it's not subject to the bankruptcy laws of the United States. It's not a bankrupt organization subject to the bankruptcy under the 14th Amendment. It's not a person.
Well, you know what? I hadn't thought about that, but I don't know that much about the history of the government going bankrupt. I know that they did, but I've never really studied that in detail. That's what the UCC people know all about that stuff. Oh yeah, they definitely, because that's a big part of how they're always saying we don't have enough money. You know, they have to have debt. They have to have debt in order to keep you guys working. Not you guys, meaning, but all the people out there. They got to keep all their worker ants working because they're always broke. You know, they're always saying, "Oh, we're broke. We don't have enough money." And you look and you say, "Well, then why did you just spend $20 million on this building that's half empty if you're broke?" It's ridiculous. I mean, the common sense side of this is we're just being worked. We're just being worked. We're like a bunch of puppets, and they're controlling us with strings. Those strings attached, we cut all those strings. There's no strings attached anymore. And what happens is the judge When you register that name, you take away all discretion from the judge. He can't decide, oh, I don't really like this guy. I'm gonna send him to jail, or I'm gonna make sure he pays big time for this. He can't do that. He asks you're holding him to the law now. And why is that? Because if he does something wrong, he's personally or she's personally liable. You can sue the judge. The Pope came out, I think it was 2013, and he said there's no more government immunity. Now, why did he say that? There's no more immunity for government employees. He's saying that because there's people like me that figured it out before me. I'm not the first one. I think that the people that figured it out, though, that registered the name properly, haven't used it the way I have. I just don't think that they have. And if they have, they haven't really put it out there for people to see. I'm putting it on Scribed. I'm trying to get it out there. And I'm using it, actively using it, to try now. This is the final piece, the restitution. How do I get paid back my inheritance? How do I get back my inheritance? And if I was damaged, how do I collect restitution for unjust enrichment? That's what I sent Aline. I sent her. It's kind of technical because it's written by college professors and legal people. There's a symposium they had, and what they talk about is unjust enrichment. They teach it in law schools. I don't think in much detail, but they say it exists. But then in statute law, you will not find one statute law that refers to unjust enrichment. So what is unjust enrichment? It's enrichment by one party at the expense of another with no contract. See, if you have a contract and you enrich yourself, that's not illegal unless whoever the party is that you're exploiting has standing. Are you guys still there?
Yes.
Okay. So the unjust enrichment is that final, they call it the third form of restitution. So there's two. In tort law, there's two. And the first one is you can get an award, and that's like an insurance type thing. It's tax free. The second one is compensation. So compensation would be like if you got fired, terminated, and the judge reinstated, says you can't do that. You got to pay them compensation for what they would have gotten paid had they been at work, had they been, not terminated. So those are the two, and that's taxable because that's compensation. The other one is just an award. So those are the two that are used in the court system. When they try to use unjust enrichment as you have to look at the cases when it's an individual, like a person that's suing a corporation, unjust enrichment, it's like 99% of the time the corporation wins, and they say the plaintiff, who is the damaged, the victim, the person, has no standing. That's why I sent that stuff. You can see the judges use that when it befits them. They're always going to stand behind the corporation. Why? Because they're a corporation too. Very few times will an individual win against a corporation. Every once in a while they do. But, normally if the government knows or a corporation knows that they're going to have some blowback from something they either sold or something they were doing and they got caught, they always set up a separate thing, like the vaccine. They set up a vaccine court. So instead of you being able to sue them, they have their own court. See? But that's for people that don't know what we know. Because see, those are individuals, those are persons that are saying, "Hey, you vaccinated my son and now he has autism." And then you fight them for 10 years and they give you $1 million. Wow. And you probably spent, a couple $100,000 in attorney fees. And then all the stress and all the stuff, it's ridiculous. This is another way to use it. I just thought of this. Okay, so in California they're claiming, oh, it's mandatory now for your children to get vaccinated. Really? Register your child. That friend of mine, Chad, he registered both his boys. And you are the authorized name holder because they're not of what do they call it? Maturity, age of maturity. They're not 21 yet. But they're name holders too. You can add as many name holders on there as you want. So you're the name holder. That gives you authorization to control any use of that name of your child.
Really? That's the way out?
Yep. That's how you protect your children. That's what we did. That's why we got CPS to close the case. He registered both of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. And then when Kaiser was dicking around, his son got an infection. When they give chemo, it lowers your body's ability to fight infections, and he got an infection in his hand. Who knows how he got it? I mean, when your immune system is down, things will penetrate your skin. Your skin is normally the steel armor. It's like we're exposed to strep all the time, and our bodies are it's like armor. The only time you really have, if you have an open cut or something, but he didn't have an open cut. He just got an infection in his hand. And so this was back when they had, he was still spending time with Christians. See, what ended up happening, it got a little ugly because his ex, well, they're still married, but they're going through a divorce. She was losing control. See, she went to her attorney and said, do something. CPS closed the case. What's going on? He's gonna get my children. She's like freaking out. And of course he doesn't want that. He wants them to spend time with the mother too. He's not trying to take them. He just doesn't want his son to die. So anyway, she told Kaiser, I have a court order. She lied. I have a court order. I'm in control, blah, 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 blah. So we sent a couple of letters. We sent a very direct letter to the CEO, Bernard Tyson, and said, if anything happens to Christian, anything, we're going to hold you personally liable. My business entity is going to sue you, Bernard. See, they can't hide anymore. There's no veil to hide behind. Their legal department just clammed up. We didn't get any. You know how legal departments normally, they are always firing. If you challenge Kaiser, oh my God, they've got like, in Pasadena, I think they have 40 attorneys just in that one office. So that's, I think, where their corporate legal base is, Pasadena. That's like Mason City.
Really?
The Masons established that. Oh, yeah. I was born in Pasadena, St. Luke's Hospital. Yep. St. Luke's isn't there anymore. But, yeah, I know all about Pasadena. Take a look at the seal, the city seal. Anyway, okay, so I don't know if that answered your question, but anyway.
Hey, can I ask you a question about that case with the Child Protective Services?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want you just to expound a little bit more about the legal relation between the business name as registered and the baby or the child, the infant, the actual human life. How did you go about, did you register that child's name as one of the DBA name holders?
No, you just register your child the same way you register yourself.
Okay, you register him a name. or her, as the case might be.
Whatever name's on that certificate of live birth as your legal name, that's the name you register. So he's got his own entity ID. The only difference is there's going to be two name holders on there. One is the actual the name holder that is directly associated with that name. That would be Christian, and then his dad would be the other authorized name holder. So his dad can sign for anything that involves Christian Joseph Arnold. He's registered. So see, with Kaiser, when he showed Kaiser, they didn't know what it was at first. It took them a little while. You know what when things really started to when they really clammed up, and all of a sudden then we knew, oh, this is it. Yeah, they're getting ready to release him. He might be out actually. I don't really know, but they're still treating him for that infection. Antibiotics are awful. They I know they think they work, and most of the time, if it's a minor thing, but when you've got a child that's got chemo in his body, you got to get the toxins out. So that's why the antibiotics aren't working. He was soaking his hand in a herbal tea, and it was getting better. And then she took him to the hospital and said, "You got the infection." He's like, "No, he already had the infection when you dropped him off." He only had him for like 3 days. So then they take him to Kaiser, and it gets worse. So anyway, see, they're going to make sure now he doesn't, that nothing happens to him. I guarantee you, because Bernard Tyson, he does not want to get sued. I guarantee you, his attorney said, yeah, this means his business entity can sue you. So that it's not worth it. There's nowhere to hide, Bernie. Let's cut it loose.
So Doug, are you saying that I have a friend who's in federal prison? Can I do the same name holder for him?
Yes, absolutely, you can. Yes.
You're talking about Doyle?
Yeah, if you've got anybody that's in jail, this is how you're going to get them out.
Okay.
You file the assumed name certificate, put yourself as the name holder, file that into the court with a motion to dismiss the case, set aside what do they call it? Set aside the ruling?
The judgment.
Judgment, and release him immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
On what grounds, Doug? On what grounds would they have to set it aside and release him immediately?
Because he's a living man.
No defendant.
He's not the defendant. The defendant is who was convicted, and it's not who, it's what. Because it's a business entity. You convicted his business entity, but you're holding the live man in a prison cell.
Well, it looks like to me, Doug, is you have evidence of the person of the registered business entity as registered by the man on the record when you put that on there. So there's actual evidence, but there's no evidence of the legal existence of the defendant as charged.
Right. See, a living man cannot operate in commerce, period. Once you've established that you're a living man, they can't touch you. So, but this is after the fact, right? So after the fact, okay, unless there's a contract, I should add that. Unless if you have a contract of some kind, like with a government agency, yeah, that's not very smart. Why would you do that? Why would you want a contract with the government if you're not getting some kind of benefit? See, there's no benefit. I see no benefit. So, but people think they have to accept that contract, and they don't realize they're contracting. That driver's license is a contract. So they're saying, oh, okay, yeah, we'll help you if you need help. Oh, but only if we, feel safe. If they don't, they have no obligation to help you. They can say, no, I'm not going in that house. There might be a burglar in there. And they could get in their car and drive away. You can sue them, but you won't win. In other words, they can just say, hey, you know, my safety is more important than your stuff in there. So I'm not going to do it. So why would you want to contract that way? I mean, so they're saying, oh, yeah, normally we'll perform, but if we decide we don't want to perform, we're not going to. You still want to be in contract? No. No, thank you. So because what are you taking along with that? All the strings that are attached. So you wouldn't want to do that. Government's not going to contract with you anyway because you're doing business as. See, when they figure that out, they're not going to want to do business with you. So it just would never happen. It wouldn't happen. But yeah, so when someone's in jail and you file that into the case, a judge is going to be forced to look at it, and it's done. The judge, you can't unfile something. You can't make it go away. So what you'd want to do is notice them what that means. Tell them what it means. The defendant is the business entity. You've got a live man in that prison cell. You got to let him go. He didn't do anything wrong. You convicted the business entity. You can punish the business entity, go right ahead. See, I'll use the analogy again of Monopoly. When you get up every day and you get in your car and you drive to work or whatever, you're rolling the dice. Okay, that's like Monopoly. You roll the dice and you move around the board. When you're that game piece and you pulled the wrong card and you go to jail, that's you going to jail. But when it's your business entity that's operating in commerce, they can jail your business entity, but they can't touch you. You're the living man. It's all fiction. They get us. They get us to think we're that legal name, and that's all they need. That's all they need. So that's why you have to be prepared. I always carry my assumed name certificate. You know what I used it today for? So I went down to get the demur, right? And I've got a fee waiver in, so I don't pay for anything. And so anyway, she had to go retrieve the file. They had just filed it yesterday, so she had to go across the street and get the file and bring it over. And then I paper clipped all the things and said, "Here you go." And she goes, "Okay, that's going to be $650, and I need some ID." And I said, "Well, I've got a fee waiver actually." And she goes, "Oh, are you the plaintiff?" I said, "Yeah, that's me at the top. See, that's my DBA." So she's like looking at it, and she's like, "Oh," and she goes, "Well, I need some ID." I said, "I don't have any ID. I really did have my passport." She goes, "You don't have like a driver's license or a passport?" I go, "No, I'm not a U.S. citizen." Oh. Well, how did you get here? She said, "How did you get here?" And I looked up in the sky. I said, I pointed up. And so she kind of laughed, and I go, "But you know what? I do have something here." And I pull out my assumed name certificate, and I go, "Right here. See, it identifies my business entity, and that's who the plaintiff is, my business entity." And she goes, "Oh." She goes, "Well, okay." So she takes the two laminated things, and she takes the file, and she disappears for like 5 minutes. And then she comes back, and she goes, "Here you go. Thank you very much. Have a nice day." And I asked her, I said, well, did you talk to somebody back there? She goes, "Yeah, I went and talked to my boss, the supervisor." "Oh, well, what did he say?" She said, "Nothing. He just nodded." That was it. And I got it for free. I didn't have to pay for it. No ID. They always ask for ID. I knew that. And I had my passport with me. She asked me if I had a passport, and I said no. So, and I ended up getting it. showing the assumed name certificate. So there you go. You use it for all kinds of things. It's whenever they're trying to identify. Oh, you can't identify a living man. I'm not an entity. But I can identify my business entity here, right here. And that's who's involved. That's who the plaintiff is. I'm not the plaintiff. My business entity is. See, it all makes sense, right? So this is just fitting the pieces together. And this woman was really, really friendly, very nice, like most people. She just happens to be a government employee. She told me, she goes, I've never seen one of these. But anyway, so the fact of the matter is, anytime that someone wants to try and identify you, that's when you pull that thing out. And it identifies your business entity and not you. Because why? Because a living man can't be identified. You're the name holder. But that thing doesn't identify you. It identifies your business entity.
You know why we cannot be identified? Because we're like a river. The river is never the same. We're always changing because blood is always flowing through our veins. We're different every second.
That's right.
We're never the same every second, every moment. So who can say, well, you're so and so?
Yeah, that's right. An entity doesn't change. An entity, a thing, is a thing. It's a thing. It's not living.
Yeah. So
really and truly, a tree is not an entity. That's not a thing. That's a living. It's alive. Vegetables, fruits, they're all alive. That they call them that, live food. But if you talk about meat, that's dead. That's dead animal cells. I don't eat meat, but anyway.
If anybody wants to hear my story, that's what the judge told me to do.
Yeah, go ahead, tell it.
Well, it's just proving what you're saying, that the two magic words is not me.
Yeah. Yeah, the judge, that blows me away. See, that tells me there are actually people sitting on the bench that are like, wow, this is messed up.
Tell them my story. It's a true story in court in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, you want me to tell it? No.
Well, I'll tell it in a few words. A traffic ticket, rolling on a yellow light on a camera ticket, which is about $700 here in LA. And a few years ago, and I go to court in Beverly Hills, and the judge, at the beginning when they speak to us, she says over and over and over again, listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you, even if you think it may not apply to your situation. And so I listen very carefully. And so she says, if you think for one reason or another it's not you on this ticket, just say two words. When I ask you to plead, just say, not me. And so my last name is always towards the end. So here is a room filled of people just like me with a ticket just like mine. And so I watch, and most people say not me, and it's a case dismissed. But about 3 people said they said it was them on the picture of the ticket, so they paid. They were guilty. They paid the full ticket. And so when comes my turn, my legs are shaking, and I said, I've got to do what she said. And so she said, how do you want to plead? Guilty, non-guilty? You rolled on a red light. And I said, not me. And so she said, okay, bailiff, bring me her paperwork. So I give my ID and the ticket to the bailiff. My legs are still shaking, and I can't wait to see what she's going to say. And she looks at my paperwork, and she says, you're right. You look so much younger in that picture. That's not you. And she said, have a nice day. Case dismissed.
Yeah.
The
So,
two magic words, not me.
So was everyone in that courtroom? Those were just red light.
Oh yeah, it was all traffic. They all pretty much the same ticket. Yeah, a lot of money in that courtroom.
Yeah, that's intersection photo.
Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah. In Beverly Hills here, a few years ago in June.
Yeah. Now, didn't they take those all out though? I thought I had read that L.A. said take them all out.
We still have a few. I'm sure. I don't know how many. We still have them.
Yeah, I know. I read about a couple of cases in San Diego where they won. The people won.
But she told us she just told us what to do. She repeated that over and over again. Please listen carefully to what I'm going to tell you. Yeah, not me. That's it.
Those kinds of tickets. That's about as flaky as you can get. A picture in a car, they can identify probably the license plate, but they're trying to identify from a picture taken from those cameras who's driving the car. I got one up in Redding. I was helping I was driving the truck, the same truck. I was helping my cousin move from Northern California to Nevada. This was a few years back. And it was like 1 a.m, and I was following behind him really close. And he had one of those big box Ryder trucks full of stuff. And so I'm right behind him. My truck's full of stuff too. And I'm towing a trailer that's like a 30-foot trailer that's full of stuff. And so I'm going, he's going like about 35. I'm only like maybe 5 feet behind him though. And the light turns yellow, but I didn't see the light until it was like way too late to stop. So I had to go through the intersection, and it just lit up like a Christmas tree because it was nighttime. Flash, 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 flash. It seemed like there were like 20 flashes. They got a ton of cameras. So I'm like, or they're taking multiple pictures. That could be it. But anyway, I'm like, oh my God, what was that? I didn't understand what it was at first. And then I go, oh, that was probably one of those red light intersections. So my son was the last one who had registered that car, the truck. So they sent the ticket to my ex-wife's house, which is the address that he had used. So if you flip it over, there's a thing that says, if this was not you driving the vehicle and you know who the person was driving the vehicle, and there's a picture of it, right, then fill out that information here. So, of course, she turns me in. She says, yep, it's this guy, and here's the address he's at. So I got the thing in the mail, and I didn't know what it was at first, but it was from Redding. And then it occurred to me, oh, so I called my son, and he said, yeah, mom turned you in. And I said, okay, thanks. You should have given me a heads up. So I sent it back. I said, I think I said, return to sender, not at this address. Addressee, not at this address. Something like that. And they sent like 5 of them. They kept sending them, and then they stopped. It just went away. I mean, it might still be in their system. I don't know, but they certainly didn't try to collect. It's all hocus pocus. It's all hocus pocus. And it was, it's fuzzy. You can't really, it's not a real defined picture of who's driving. I think that's part of the reason that she probably said, if you think it's not you, just say not me.
No, I knew enough at the time to know that I'm not a picture on a piece of paper.
Right.
6 months ago, I just knew that. I knew enough that I'm not. Yeah. I'm a living being. I'm not a picture on any paper. That's it.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, so that is a a good story. I love to hear stuff like that. But that's probably why she was saying that. There's probably been other cases where you didn't tell me. I could have just said that's not me. So that could have something to do with that. I don't know. But like I say, there are judges that know what we're doing.
She knew exactly. Come on, she dismissed a whole room of people.
Yeah. I understand.
It was all case dismissed.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, that's because of the other court cases. What they are forcing them to do is what? Give them full knowledge. See, a contract is only valid if you're fully informed. If they're not telling you everything, like, oh, by the way, this name is really not you. You're voluntarily saying it is. What
if I didn't listen to what she said and I did not do what she said? I would have paid the full ticket.
Yeah, but here's the point I'm making is the reason, because I've had people ask me that. How can it be retroactive? You file it now. You're 50 years old. What about all that other stuff that happened? Well, when you were in contract, so to speak. But were you fully informed? Was that a valid contract? Nope. That's why, it's retroactive. You can go back to the day you were born.
Contracts made with infants are not void, they're voidable.
Okay, yeah. Normally, you don't contract until you're at least 16, but you're still a minor.
18.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, to get a driver's license, you're contracting. So that would be voidable. Is that what you're saying?
Well, if you got a foundling, for example, and an estate was created for the foundling to pay the foundling's necessaries, such as the registered organization that was given by the United States through its instrumentality state of, and the registered name, their registered name that they were the registrant on. Well, they have an agency and trust for the payment of debt, but that was made while the little baby was an infant. And so they created an agency for the payment of debt of the United States and figured that someday you would turn from human resources into human capital to pay back the bondholders that had funded the account to begin with. Right.
See, I think when you register that name too, I just touched on it. I think it has an effect. There's a reason they put that on security paper, on that banknote paper. And I think they can use that to print money essentially until you register it. Now all of a sudden you become the creditor, and they have to pay you back all that money. Who was just telling me about something they were filing? Was it you, Rich, that was telling me about the guy in Ohio?
Yes, KW.
Yeah. So he's saying, hey, you owe me $81,000 a year because that's what I would have been paid had I known I was a government employee or something like that, right?
Yeah, registered agent, yeah.
Registered agent, yeah. Yeah, and so at this point, where's it at again? He's supposed to have a meeting with them?
Yeah, he's waiting on settlement.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Is he registered, by the way?
No.
Okay.
No, but they did give him a private name with a private birth certificate.
Private name. How did he get that?
It was through the liaison, through an admiralty and rem proceeding. And
that's what Rich was telling me about. That's right.
Right.
So and he got his own. That has a separate Social Security number, right?
We don't know the ramifications because there's a non-disclosure on the agreement right now.
Oh, okay. But now, can he use that to open a bank account? Is it a business entity or is it an individual, or what? How do they classify that?
He was told he was classified as a private natural person.
Private natural person. Yeah. See, when you talk about natural and artificial persons, I think they're both traps, both of them, because a natural person can't be a man. So,
It
but
can only
the
be a
private
status.
part of it, the private part of it is almost a contradiction because a natural man can't be private. A natural man can only be, or I'm sorry, a natural person can't be private. A natural person can only be public. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. This is a good test, though. I mean, there could be more ways to skin the cat. You know, he might be confusing the crap out of them. They don't know what he's done. So how many people have done what he's done? Probably no one, right? He's blazing a trail. Did he learn it from somebody else?
No, he's the one that started it.
Yeah, there you go. So they're probably like this attorney. This attorney that's working for this poor client of his. He didn't know what to do. You know, and like I told when we exchanged a couple of emails too, and I after that one conversation we had where I was telling him this is how it's going to play out, Bill. And he sent me an email. He said, "Could you educate me a little bit more on that?" And so that's when I sent him the paper. Here, read this, Bill. This will educate you. And I never heard back from him. But since that time, I have left a couple of voicemails, and he hasn't called me back. What I ended up doing, when I talked to him, I said, "Yeah, you know, the bad news is your client is going to end up having to give me my business property back, and if there's any damage to it, he's going to have to fix it and wash my truck before he returns it, and he's going to have to pay me $1,500 a day. But here's the good news. The good news is I'll help you when your client sues the city." And he didn't really respond to that. And I said, because he is going to pay me, but that, you can tell him there's good news. There's a silver lining. I will help him sue the city. And if you have a copy of the contract, I can sit down with you and I can show you how we can pick that apart. There's always a flaw in the contract. Always. So I didn't hear back from him. So I decided I want to go down and see the contract. Right? So I go down to the city of Walnut Creek, go to the finance. That's where all the contracts usually are. And they said, "Yeah, we usually have contracts here. Fill this thing out. You know, we don't know where it is. We'll find it." And so 2 weeks go by, I didn't hear anything. I'm calling the finance. So they go, "We can't find it. We think it's over at the police department." I said, "Well, did you go ask someone? Did you go over there? Isn't it right next door?" And they're like, "Well, that actually you need to talk to the city clerk." I go, "Okay." So I talked to the assistant city clerk, and she acted like she didn't know either. And I said, "Okay, well, you know, the city clerk is the one that's supposed to keep track of records and stuff. The finance department should actually have the contract, but I'll tell you what, you know, do your due diligence and get back to me. And here's my email. Just email it to me when you find it." Okay. So another almost 2 weeks went by again. No, nothing. So I pick up the phone and I call her. "Hey, what's going on with that?" She goes, "Oh." She goes, "Yeah, I forgot to get back to you." And I go, "Yeah, you did." I go, "Where is it?" And she goes, "There isn't one." And I said, "What?" She goes, "Well, we can't find it." And I said, "Okay, so what you said first is true. There isn't one. If you can't find it, it doesn't exist." She goes, "Correct." I said, "Can you put that in writing?" She goes, "Sure." So she sends me an email. You know, "Pursuant to your request, blah, 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 blah. We were unable to provide you with the information you requested or the documentation you requested." So I had already talked to Brian Hickey, the assistant attorney. When this whole thing started, I called him and I said, "Listen," I explained it to him on the phone, And I said, do you want to see the assumed name certificate? He goes, yeah, send it to me. So I emailed it to him. And remember, this is all business. So I'm talking to him like a colleague. And I'm explaining to him what I've done. And I said, this tow truck company, they kind of fell into a trap. And you guys are brilliant. And he's like, what? What do you mean? I said, well, there's no contract. You suckered 11 tow truck companies into doing business with the city where the city has no liability and they have all the liability. And he started laughing. He was laughing. I go, it's funny, isn't it? I go, I have never known of any business that would do business with a government agency with no contract. Nothing in writing. So he says, well, there is a list that they sign up for. So that's what they do. It's been in place for, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what, I think it was 1972 is when they passed some resolution. That's about the time that the tow trucks started towing vehicles for revenue. That was, when the tow trucks were first invented, they were to help people. And then right in the early 70s, they realized, wow, we can make a lot of money here. So they have a rotational system, and it's all voluntary. So what happens is they go from one to the next. So they'll pick up the phone, hey, we got a job for you. Send a truck out to so-and-so. But he could say, no, we're too busy. We'll pass. Then they go to the next one. Okay? So, because there's no contract, they can't force them to perform. So what that means is that when his tow truck driver came out here, he has discretion. He can look at the vehicle and say, you know what? I don't feel comfortable towing that thing. I'm gonna take a picture of this plate. I'm gonna send it to my boss. And if he says no, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to call another company. That's what voluntary means. So that means that his boss just didn't train his employees properly. He made a mistake. Oops, sorry. A mistake is one thing, but that's why I sent you that letter. I said you made a mistake and you blew me off. Sorry. The $1,500 a day is not negotiable. Pay me.
Hey, Doug.
So, yeah.
So you said that you had a private plate. Do you have an image of that, or can you describe your private plate?
Yeah, I have an image. If you do, I have your email. Who am I talking to? Is that Dan?
Yeah, this is Daniel. You can put it right in the Skype room if you felt so inclined.
Yeah, let's see.
We'd just like to see this private plate. Did you give them notice of your private plate? Did you send it to the sheriffs of the counties, or did you just start it operating?
Yeah, but what I just dropped in there was the authenticated DBA. I didn't know I could send it out to all you guys that way. So hang on. Okay, what did you ask again?
Did you give notice of your private plate to the local sheriffs of the counties and the police stations, or just?
I did when I moved to Nevada. I went to the sheriff, and I had the commander come out and look at my truck, and I showed him my assumed name certificate. I said, I don't have a driver's license. I'm operating privately, and this is my vehicle. Is there any problem with it? Nope. Thanks for letting us know. Can I take a picture of it? I said, yeah, go ahead, take a picture of it. Send it to all your deputies so that they know I'm cool. And I said, now, by the way, I don't speed. I don't run stop signs. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm a very safe driver. They don't have to worry about me. And he's like, cool, thank you. So, yeah, that's about the only time I've done that. I drove around L.A. for 3.5 years and was trying to get pulled over. I pulled into I did this a couple of times. I'd pull into a donut shop or a bagel shop, and I would intentionally pull in when there's lots of cops there. And I'd park right next to one if I could. And then I go in and get a cup of coffee, and then I wait until they're coming out, and then I go out with them. And I say, hey, look at that plate on that truck. One time I did it, and the guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, man, I saw you drive in with that truck. And I said, yeah, I did. You're right. That's my truck. You're exactly right. But I don't have a driver's license, and I'm registered. And I'm going to get in it right now, and I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to peel rubber down Sepulveda Boulevard, and you're going to pull me over, and then I'll show you my registration. And his comment was, no, we're not going to fall for that trick. Oh, so now I'm the one tricking you instead of the other way around. So anyway,
what was the registration? What registration are you referring to? The car's registration or the name's registration?
No, I said, but I'm registered. I didn't say my car is registered. I said I'm registered.
I'm just trying to make clear. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. Yeah, my car's. I told him my truck is not registered, but I am. So let's see.
Doug, do you have a copy of your plate?
Yeah, I'm looking for it now. I got it in here somewhere.
Thank you.
Okay, here it is. Okay, that's one, and then I'm going to drop another one, which is a little bit. It's more of an expanded view, and then I'm going to drop another one. This is a friend of mine on Facebook who's in Utah. This is the back of his car. It says private use only plate. He's got it in bold. It says private automobile. I'm going to let you guys look at that. I'll be right back. I got to go to the bathroom real quick.
I didn't get it.
You didn't? Well, I can email them to you.
No, put it here on the Skype.
I got to go to the bathroom.
It is in Skype. You have to scroll down. It's in the Skype room, in our public room here, our joint room.
Okay. I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. Hello?
Yeah, if you scroll down, you have to go to our current call. And he put it in, and he showed a photo that says, to view this shared photo, go to the Skype number, and it gives you a link. There's two of them. There's three of them. They follow his authenticated DBA PDF he put in. It's at 10:30 p.m. is what it says over here, but over you it probably says 8:30. 8:32.
Okay, I'm back. So, were you able to get it? Everyone got the things. So the guy that has that old police interceptor with all that stuff on the back, he lives in Utah. He has videos on YouTube of him being pulled over. There's two of them. One of them, the cop, it's like 3 minutes long. The cop is like, okay, wait here. He comes back like within 30 seconds and he goes, okay, here's your paperwork. Have a nice day. He's handing him like something about having a common law license. And he's got the not for hire verbiage and all that stuff. So I showed him my plate. I said, yeah, I don't do that stuff. I don't use any statute law at all. I used to. If you look at the back of my truck on the tailgate, you can kind of see where it looks like there was something there before. I had to peel it off. That's where it said not for hire. And I had the code, the DMV, or the vehicle code section, and I had the federal law, and I had some case law. And it was, that was when I didn't know what I know now. And so I took that off. It just says private property. But I like his car. I said, yeah, I mean, that gets a lot of attention. It's like, how can you miss that? It's kind of funny. But so I told him, I said, I'm a little more discreet. I wait until they get right up on my tail, and then they go, uh-oh. I drive in the carpool lane at peak traffic hour by myself in that truck, and it's just a single cab truck. So, and I don't have anything behind, so you can tell there's just one person in there, one driver. That's it. And the CHP will come up right next to me. They'll be split in the lane, and they'll look in, and I wave at them, and then they keep going. So there's certain agencies, like the state agency, they know better. Why? Because they're operating everywhere. So somebody has taken probably one of those CHP officers to task, and they leave me alone. So Walnut Creek, they just haven't been stung yet. At least the tow truck companies haven't, because I guarantee you, once this guy loses their little association here, they're going to have a little powwow, and they're going to say, "Shit, what are we going to do here?" But see, I'm going to explain in my brief what he did wrong. I'm going to tell them so that they can say, okay, well, yeah, from now on, we're going to pick and choose the cars we want to tow. And if we feel a car might be, risking it, we'll pass, because they have no contract. And so what would happen if all the tow truck companies said, screw you, none of us are going to do this? Then what would the city do? See, so the city's going to have to work with them. Otherwise, the city doesn't get any revenue. They need that third party to do their dirty work. They can't. You notice if they really were doing what they thought was the right thing, then why don't the police department have their own tow trucks and their own tow yard? Then they would be cleaning up. And the tow truck companies might whine and moan and say, hey, you're competing with us. Yeah, well, tough, sue us. And they tried to do that in Walnut Creek. If you Google Walnut Creek police towing or something like that, you'll see there was a ordinance they were trying to get passed, and they had actually already started. They had land already designated, and then there was all this opposition from the tow operators, and they said, you know what? If you do that, we're not going to tow anything. We're not going to tow vehicles for you and take them to your yard so that you can make money. So they were going to have to get their own tow trucks, the city. So they said, okay, we'll scrap that. Forget it. It's just a racket. This is racketeering. In fact, that's what I'm going to call it. In my brief, I'm going to say this is nothing more than a lower style form of racketeering. It's mafia stuff. So it's just exposing their Achilles heel. That's all I'm doing. I'm exposing where their weakest point is. Why would I sue the city when I can sue him? He's the one he's in possession of my business property. Of course I'm going to sue him. But I'm not going to sue his corporation. I'm suing him personally because and especially him, because he didn't sign a contract. See, a business entity can't sign a contract. He would be the one signing the contract. If he had a contract, his defense could be, hey, I was performing. I have a contract that says I have to do what this cop tells me to do. You guys better back me up. See, that would be the smart thing to do. If you're a smart businessman, these tow truck operators it's like the Wild West. But they're making a fortune. They're making a lot of money. I was looking at in Newport Beach, the one tow truck company Their average take is $3,000 a day.
Mm.
$3,000 a day. You know, and it's like the average person paid like 400 something. So that's only what, less than 10 cars. So most people don't leave their cars in there. If they did, their lots would be full. If there were people like me, because that truck's been there now for a month and a half. He's pissed off. I'm taking up space. Well, then bring it back, you idiot. It's like he's just screwing himself. He's paying $1,500 a day to my business entity to use that vehicle that's taking up space that he could be making revenue instead of paying me. What an idiot. See, I'm going to point that out to the judge. I'm going to say, hey, you know, he's not a very smart businessman because he could have given me that property back. If he's complaining about me taking up space in his yard, hey, he's the one that contracted. So that letter that I wrote initially and I sent certified mail, that was my offer. I said, take it or leave it. But if you leave it, it's going to be $1,500 a day from June 17th, and I'll have to file a complaint against you. So that's a tacit agreement. He didn't respond to that offer. So he agreed to pay me $1,500 a day. That's what I'm going to tell him. That's going to be in my brief. I'm going to tell the judge, hey, it's a tacit agreement, Judge. I gave him plenty of time to respond. He blew me off. And even like in the very beginning, when I first filed this, if his attorney called me and said, hey, listen, can we sit down and settle this thing? I'd say, of course we can. That's what I want to do. I tried to tell your client in the first place. I sent the letter. Did you get that letter? He got the letter. He says, yeah, I saw your letter. I said, did your client call you? He didn't answer that question. See, because he knows what I'm doing. I'm setting him up. His client didn't call him. His client probably said, oh, this is just a bluff. This guy's a piece of crap. He doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, yeah? Guess what? You've been served. So that's why you write the letter first. You give them an offer to give it back. Say, hey, you know what? You made a mistake. Everyone makes mistakes. I understand that. Just bring the property back and we're good to go. We're cool. So you need to do that. And if they bring the property back, you won. But you're not going down there to get it. They're bringing it back here and they're washing it. They're gonna make sure there's nothing wrong with it. If there's something wrong with it, he's gonna pay for it. So anyway, that's where this is where we're gonna start when I win this. See, I already know I'm gonna win. So when I win this, now this is a repeatable thing. I can just keep doing the same thing. I'll use the same verbiage in the complaint. It's rubber stamp because it's always the same thing. It's always the same thing. So, but people need to understand that we have that kind of power. Because people will say, well, they could come back after you and have you pay for the attorney fees, right? Because of course that's what Bill told me. He says, yeah, we're gonna, you need to know that we're gonna require that you pay attorney fees. And I started laughing. I said, you're assuming you're gonna win. I said, I'm not gonna be paying your attorney fees. Your client is, but he's got plenty of money. I told him, I says, I know they've got at least 20 properties, so you got nothing to worry about. He's loaded. You're sitting good. Whether you win or lose, you still get paid. So you're good. You're good. Your client, not so good. But anyway. And see, I did try to talk to this client. I tried to reach out. I called and left messages. He blew me off. And his attorney says, you're not to contact the client anymore. I said, okay, no problem. I'll go through you. This is just business. This is nothing personal. You let them know that too. There's nothing personal. This is business for me. It's personal for your client, but that has nothing to do with me. He's meddling in my business with no contract. Now the contract is a tacit agreement because he blew me off. That's, well, whatever. We'll see. So, anyway. Any other questions? Nope. I see, Rich, you got did you send me 4 messages?
Yeah, I think so.
I can't see them. It won't let me. Oh, there we go. I click these little balls on there. Now I've got the screen. Okay, there's all the questions. Did I answer all of them? Can you explain a signature business account? Okay, so I think I touched on that. Anytime, this is not just a business account. Anytime you're signing something that has your legal name above it, so say, for example, the bank is saying, we can't put Herrick first and then comma. We can't do it the way your signature is. Okay, no problem. I'll sign it Herrick, comma, Douglas Joseph, DBA, Douglas Joseph Herrick. That's all you have to do. Now, if it allows me to print in Herrick, comma, Douglas Joseph, then I just sign it that way. It's only when they say, no, we can't do that you have to put the full thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, because you're operating on behalf of your business entity. Anytime you operate on behalf of your business entity, you're identifying that. So you're in the clear. You're saying, I'm a living man. That my business entity is what I'm representing. So, what else was it that this guy Juan had asked me? He's sending the assumed name. He's using it for all kinds of things. He's down in Florida. I'm trying to remember what he was writing a letter to. It is a court appearance. And so he was preparing a letter, and he says, yeah, I'm appearing on behalf of my business entity. And I said, you never want to use that word appearance. Never. Because something is never as it appears. Nothing is as it appears. That's in their mystical world. You are there representing your business. You're representing your business entity, or you're there on behalf of your business entity. You are there. You're a living man. Only an entity appears. Do you guys understand that? Is that making sense to you? Only an entity can make an appearance.
Got it.
A living man cannot make an appearance. A living man is either there or he or she is not there. Whereas an entity is just it's fictional. So it can appear and disappear. Like that. It's an illusion. It's magic. So I stay away from that word appear. They use that word all the time, appear. When did you appear? Well, I didn't appear at any time. I was there, but I didn't appear.
So, Doug, all these people that are saying I'm here by special appearance got it wrong.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And I've said that before, too.
Yeah, me too.
I'm here specially, not generally.
Yeah.
Reserving all my rights without prejudice. I'm not here to argue, testify, or create any controversy. I'm here to settle this matter today, right here, right now. How do we do that? So that is the line that I've used before, and it actually does work, but the appearance part is not good. And that was before I knew everything that I know now.
Sure.
So, yeah, you know who taught me that was a guy named Jacques. And Jacques is a famous plastic surgeon. He was the first back in the 70s. He reattached a thumb, and it worked. He a completely severed thumb. He reattached it. So he was famous. This is in Texas, and he was asked to be on a board of directors for a bank. And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, I'll do that." He's making tons of money. Okay, so he's you know, he's now sitting on the board, and they hand him probably a CAFR report or something like that, and he reads the whole thing. None of those board members read anything. They just initial it, and then they go have cocktails. So, but he takes it seriously. He takes it home, and he reads the whole thing. And then he makes notes, and he writes a letter to the CEO and says, "Hey, you know, the bank is screwing up. There's all kinds of things here that aren't right." And the CEO, you know, calls him up and says, "Hey, what are you talking about? We asked you to be on the board. I didn't ask you to investigate the bank." And he said, "But wait a minute. If I'm on the board, I'm supposed to be here to make sure, you know, so the shareholders have some degree of knowledge that someone's overseeing things. That's why there are people from the public." And so, anyway, long story short, they ended up, you know, saying, "Thanks, but no thanks. You're no longer a board member." So he knows that he's onto something there. So he starts delving deeper. And he realized the whole Federal Reserve thing, it's all fake, blah, blah, blah. So he writes a book called Debt Virus. This is in 81. This is way back. He writes a book called Debt. You can still buy it. It's on Amazon. Jacques Jacquerin. He's a friend of mine. I've known him since 2009. He's a fellow Ed Rivera student. Sucker. Anyway, he's the one who told me that line, because after he published that book, they destroyed him. They took his business license away, his medical license away. He couldn't make any money. They took all his money out of his bank account. They threw him in jail. They sold all his property. Because he was in jail, he couldn't pay for anything. They just steamrolled him. So he's down there in Texas. He's good friends with Colleen. Colleen and Russell live like 5 minutes away from him. So he registered his name. He still hasn't figured out how to use it. He's trying to get his business license in another state now. And I said, "You can get it. You use your business entity to apply for it. Don't use you to apply. Use your business entity." I don't think he did. Because, see, when you're applying for a job, that's commerce. Or applying for a license, rather. That's commerce. So you don't want to apply for anything. Your business entity. Anytime that word apply comes into play, that's commerce. You use your business entity. I said, if you use your name and don't tell them, "Hey, I'm registered." So he's just doing it wrong. But anyway, he was held in jail, I think 14 weeks at one time, and then 2 years another time. And the 2 years was the first time. The second time was the 14 weeks. And he said after 14 weeks, he was out long enough to figure out a couple of things. And so when they finally brought him before the judge, he said that line, "I'm here specially, not generally, blah, 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 blah." And then the judge turns to the prosecutor and just reams him a new one. "Don't ever bring this man into my courtroom again. You're free to go. Let him go." And he's still in his jail clothes. What did they charge him with? Nothing. They just held him. This is the persecution part of it. He lost probably $20 million, something like that. 20 million. All because he wrote a book. He wrote a book. If he had just gotten off the board of directors and then just kept being a plastic surgeon, he'd be retired now, a wealthy man. Now he's like 70-something years old, and he has no way to earn a living. What a waste. He's a master surgeon, and he can't work. It's not good. But I need to hold his hand a little bit, because he taught me something. He taught me about the fact that that line, you don't want to ever argue. You want to settle the matter. You want to settle it. It's always about settlement. Let's settle. Okay, well, we don't have a contract, so I'm going to be naming what the amount is that the settlement is, and you're going to pay me. But he was just he was at an extreme disadvantage. When you're in jail, you can't really do much of anything. That's why the guys that that are in jail are they're blessed to have someone that can help them on the outside, because they can't register inside jail. But you could register for them and act as an authorized name holder. That's it right there. That's how all these people are going to be able to get their friends and family out of jail, especially when it's for some little petty thing, like having drugs on you or something like that, non-violent stuff. They're going to cut them loose immediately. But violent offenders, well, there's not too many people that want them out anyway. Fortunately, the only one who would be trying to get violent offender out would be maybe a girlfriend or something like that. But the odds are they're not going to know what we know. This is how the whole system's going to implode from the inside. Because, see, you're exposing it, and then you're forcing the judge to do something that they don't want to do. And then the people on the inside are going to see that. What do you think is going to happen when all the inmates see that all of a sudden this guy gets out? Because no doubt he's going to tell the people, the other inmates, his friends in jail, what's going on. Well, it depends, I guess, how long they've been there. I was there for, 53 days the second time. And I had a list of like 100 emails. All new friends that I made in jail. That were like, here, I want to stay in touch with you. I want to register when I get out. And a lot of them have contacted me, and they're registered now. So the part about getting restitution, though, that's the part that once I win here, and I'm going to be posting all this stuff on Scribe. And I've got a friend that's actually wants to build a website. He said he's working on it, but what I envision is like something that's a closed group, but that's like a forum where we can have open chat back and forth. And I would pay for it. I would be paying for it it's not that much to host. And then the other idea that Rich talked about one, the having what's it called again, Rich?
It's called freeconferencecallhd.com.
Yeah. And then just have like a set time every 2 weeks where we would meet on the internet.
Right.
And maybe have an email list. Someone has a master email list that they could send out a message to everyone and let them know, yeah, we're on tonight at such and such a day. Because sometimes we won't. It could be we're not going to be. I'm not going to be able to be there, but we can still have the conference. And if there's no one there, then you just shut it down early. But anyway, so yeah, there's other ways to get this out there. The only problem with an open type thing is that you're going to have trolls in there, and that's just a waste of time. And so I would prefer if we got something that's a little more under our control, where if I can tell someone that's a troll right away, and then it just boot them, get them out, because that's ridiculous.
I like that, Doug. Let's do that.
Yeah. So I visited a lot of these groups, and I can tell right away they were started by someone that is trying to send people down the wrong path. So they label themselves as some kind of patriot group, or liberty, be free, be a free man type thing, and then I start reading some of the stuff that the moderators are talking about, and I'm like, oh my God, they're just leading these people. It's like the Ed Rivera thing. Let's lead them to slaughter, and make it sound like this is what you do. Stand up for your rights. And you're just exposing yourself to. That's what happened to me. The first time I was in jail for 55 days, that was Ed Rivera.
Yuck.
Yeah. So, but 55 days, even in LA County Jail, that's not too bad. I was meeting guys that have been in there for like 3 years. I said, "You've been in this jail for 3 years?" Yep. I'm like, I thought you were only supposed to be here a year at the most. And no, they do all the stuff they're not supposed to do, the county, but they're making money. The LA Sheriff's Department, every year their budget is $3 billion. They have 200 buses. 200 buses. They're bussing inmates around every day.
That's what you call an industry.
Yeah, it is. That's big business.
It is.
$3 billion a year. Yeah. So, yeah. So I was out in this place called Wayside, which is out near Magic Mountain. So they'd say, "You got court. Get up. 3 a.m. Get up. You got court." So you don't get to the courthouse till like 7:30 maybe. And then I would sit all day. They were dry runs. Sit all day, and then at the end of the day, they get some public defender to come down and try to convince me to sign some paperwork. And so I wouldn't get back till 8 o'clock. And all I've had all day are peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and orange juice or milk. And I get back after all the meals have been served, and I get a burrito. And I have to strip down and bend over and cough. It's torture. It's like they're just trying to break you down. So they did that, like, I think I had 8 dry runs where they're just wearing me down. So, but that wasn't too bad. I couldn't take a shower then, but on the days that they didn't take me, I could take a shower whenever I wanted. And except for when lights were out. Wayside wasn't too bad, but it's all all of this is something that we're doing to ourselves. And so I look back at that, and I was thinking, I needed to go through that in order for me to figure out how to do what I know now. I had to. So, yeah, but I don't wish that on anybody. My goal is to, prepare people so that never happens to them. If you have this already established ahead of time, and like you said, whoever said it, go down to the police station, tell them, hey, I have no driver's license. I'm registered, though. Here's my assumed name certificate. Here's what my vehicle looks like. Show them a picture. This is the plate. It's private property. So I'm noticing all of you that I'm legal. I'm legal. My name is registered. I'm a living man. If any of your officers pull me over, your officers are at risk. Personal liability. You let them know. Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea at all. But see, I did do that when I was in Nevada. That's the only time I've ever done it. Every other time, I want them to pull me over. That's the only way I'm going to find out how this whole thing works. So they didn't end up pulling me over, but they stole it off the street, which is what I wanted them to do anyway, so that I can test what I now think is the way to get restitution. Unjust enrichment. He's unjustly enriching himself at my business expense. It's costing my business money. And of course, the only contract that's in place is the tacit agreement where I gave him the chance to give it back, and he said no by not responding. Okay, well, you don't want to give it back, then I guess you are loaded. You're going to pay me $1,500 a day. The judge is going to say, you got outsmarted. He outsmarted your ass. And it's going to be easier for the judge to say that to him than it is to say to a city police department, you guys got, you got hoodwinked. This guy, he trapped you. So that's what it. See, everything's a 180. I've turned the tables around. Who's trapping who now? Because see, everything is a trap. Everything in commerce is a trap until you register. Then you can set traps for them. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. I'm following the law. I'm not doing anything illegal. But you are. You're not registered. But go ahead and take the property if you want. Go ahead. I accept your offer. And you're going to be accepting my offer very shortly. So, yeah, it's all a game. This is all it is we figured out a way to play their game and win every time. This is 100%. 100% of the time you will win when it's the government, because you don't have any contract with the government. When it comes to debt and other things like that, where you're actually signing a contract of some kind, I'm not too sure about that. That's where the people that do a lot of work with cleaning up credit reports. Those are the kind of people that, like, I've got this one guy, Bob Locke, who's an attorney whose license has been revoked. I like that. He found my paper and read it and contacted me, and we've talked a couple of times. And he has a credit company. It's called Windfall Resources International, something like that. And it's a credit repair thing. And he's helping people that have foreclosures. That's his thing. But he hasn't found anything that works every time. It's hit and miss, he said. And he says, I like what you wrote, because it sounds to me like if you do it right, you can win every time. And I said, yeah, you're right. You're right. You can win every time. So, but he has more knowledge about the mortgage process and the robo-signers and, the deed and all that. I don't know. Even though I was in real estate, that was not my forte. I was not in the back room. I was an originator. So once the loan was funded, I was on to the next one. I never dealt with what they do after that. I just knew they sell them over and over and over again. And every time they sell them, someone's getting paid. So there's a lot of money in mortgages, a lot of money. So anyway, is that it? Did I get it all? It's a little after 9 o'clock here, so that means it's like 11 o'clock where you guys are, right?
Yep.
So, what is this on here? Thank you for your email. Since 2012, our office only provides black and white certificate. Oh, this was something from the Secretary of State in Minnesota. You can order a copy of the documents from our office. However, they will still look the same if you print them yourself. Okay. Someone asked something about why if there's something with color on it. Color is all in their fictional world. It's just to make it look fancy and make it look like what you're paying for has some value. That's all it is. You know, they make the anything on that security paper. I was looking at because I have pink slips going way back to just about every car that I've owned. And for a while there in the 90s in California, they had one that looked like a rainbow. It was like weird. It's like, wow, what are they doing that for? But anyways, now they're pretty bland. They're just pink. They call them pink slips. At least here, that's what they call them. But they're on banknote paper. So my guess is they're making money off of those some way too. They're selling those somehow. They're buying and selling them. Well, they are. They're taking the property back and then they're selling them. But every time they do that, they're generating more revenue because the new owner has to go down and register it, pay the fees. It's all revenue. Okay, folks.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I got to go to bed, so.
Yeah. We'll do it again. And and who was it that I said I was going to? Dan, do you still need me to email you something? Did I forget to email you something? Dan might not be there. Okay. All right.
He's there. He's just on mute.
Oh, okay. The only other thing that I would recommend is when you're ready for it is to read these things on unjust enrichment so that you understand that, because that's how we're going to get back what they took from us.
Well,
so it's one thing to have them leave us alone, but then we want to get back what's ours, what our inheritance. So, all right, guys. Good talking to y'all. Thanks, Aline, for putting this together.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.